Today on Filmmaking for Noobs, we're going to build a DIY slider for around $35. Now I know that there's a lot of DIY slider videos out there already. Some of them are pretty good, but I found that some of the better ones are a bit pricey or expensive, especially when you're trying to do it yourself in order to save money because you're on a limited budget. I also found that the cheap ones that are $10 to $15 to build are really cheap and don't work that great. So my goal today was to find a happy medium that will allow us to build a nice slider that doesn't cost too much but allows us to get some good sliding shots. Now obviously this tutorial is not meant to be a replacement for professional high-end sliders. This is simply meant to be a do-it-yourself project that you can do to make your shots a bit more cinematic when you're working with limited resources and a limited budget. However, if you're doing this professionally or earning an income off of what you're doing, I would highly recommend investing the right amount of money to rent or buy the proper tools to do the job. So let's get started with our build. To build our slider, we're going to start with our 6-foot copper pipe, which we will measure to 3 feet, and cut it in half using bolt cutters. These will become the rails for our slider. Next, we're going to take a piece of plywood and we're going to measure out and cut 2 5-inch by 7-inch pieces. These will become the end pieces of our slider. I'm cutting these in pieces with curved corners to make it look a little bit nicer. We will also measure and cut a 6-inch by 6-inch square piece, which will become our center plate. We have our 2 end pieces and we have our center plate. Although not required, I highly recommend sanding all of your wood pieces with multiple grits of sandpaper until you have a nice smooth finish. I'm also sanding down the edges and corners as well. Another optional step is I will be applying stain to my wooden pieces and finishing with a lacquer coat. This is not required, but it does give the slider a much nicer and more professional appeal. Next, we're going to mount our rails to our end pieces. This does require very precise measuring to make sure that your pipes end up in the right place so that the slider will function smoothly on the rails. I would suggest mounting your pipes so that the centers are 3 to 4 inches apart, and I'm using copper brackets to mount these pipes. If you find a cheaper bracket, feel free to use that as long as it's the right size. For now, we will only attach one end piece. We also have these end caps which we'll be adding to the pipes for aesthetics and safety reasons. In order for our center plate to glide across the rails, we are going to be using 8mm groove guide pulley ball bearings, which I ordered online. There is a link for these in the description of this video. We will also be using a 5/16 inch by 2-inch bolt, along with a flat washer, a locking washer, a 5/16 inch nut, and 3/8 inch nut. We're going to place our ball bearings up against the rails and measure out very carefully the distance between the centers of these ball bearings. You'll want to make sure that you are very precise in this measurement and double check it a few times to make sure you have it right. We're going to use a 5/16 inch bit and drill 4 holes, 1 in each corner of our center plate, making sure that the centers of these holes are the same distance from each other as the ball bearings are. Once we've drilled our holes, we can start connecting the ball bearings to our center plate. I'm going to slide the bolt through the ball bearing and then add the little bit larger nut onto the bolt, which will end up resting inside the ball bearing and giving us a little bit of room to clear the platform. We will then add the flat washer on top of there, put the bolt through the wood, add the locking washer, and then screw on the nut. We'll want to make sure that this is nice and tight so that it stays on and so that all 4 are evenly positioned. Once we have all 4 ball bearings connected, we can slide our center plate onto the rails and then attach the second end piece. Once again, properly measure the distance between rails so that they are even with the other side. I've also purchased some clear stick-on spacers, which we're going to attach to the bottom of our end pieces. If you'd like to take it a step farther and have the ability to mount your slider to a couple C-stands or lighting stands, you can purchase a couple TVMP adapters for about $11 a piece. I've put a link for these adapters in the description of this video as well. I'm using a 1/2-inch hole saw to cut a hole in each end piece for the bolt of the TVMP adapter to go through. Once it is attached, we can now use our slider on top of C-stands. Using a 1/4 20 socket head cap screw and a wing nut, we'll be able to easily secure our camera or a tripod head to the top of our slider. And here are some cool slippery sliding shots taken from our DIY slider, which cost us around $35. So go out there, build yourself a slider, let me know how it turns out. I'd love to see some of the shots that you get from your DIY sliders. This has been Filmmaking for Noobs. I'm Kyle Lawrence. Thanks for watching, subscribing, liking, and commenting below. Have a great day.